Dune, Desert Planet. We're going to explore the universe of Dune and why Dune is so important to everyone. We're going to explore the book, the movies, the TV series, the board game, and of course, all the video games. And at the end of this video, I have a little bonus for everyone. So stay tuned to find out what it is. Let's Shai Halud judge you now. So let us start with the book itself, Dune, written by Frank Herbert, the man himself. This one right here is my very own First Club edition book. These books are very rare to get your hands on, so you have to be lucky to own one of these. The year is 1959. He was sent to Oregon to write about sand dunes for an article which never got published. But it was the beginning of creating the world of Dune, and his imagination begins. Now, we could go more into details about how he got some ideas for the Dune book or how he became a writer, but we have so much to catch up to, so we're gonna have to skip those parts. Now, I actually like the cover art on this book here, especially how the green and the red complement each other on the rock face. It adds so much mystery to it. Now, there's actually a funny story behind this book that Frank Herbert couldn't get anyone to publish his book, but there was one company that was willing to take a chance on this book, and that company makes car manuals. And they took a huge risk on him. But I think in the end, we all know that it paid off. And these books went off to win awards for Best Science Fiction, Best Novel. And some critics consider this book to be the best science fiction book ever written. And even Arthur C. Clarke likes this book. And that's saying a lot. And about 20 million copies were sold. And here is the Danish Dune book, Klit. Are you finished laughing? Can we go on now? Thank you. Klit means dune in Danish. Let's look at the other countries and see how they write it and how it sounds.
Klit,
Sa丘 Dune
dune,
沙丘
sandine,
Duna,
sago,
Amorphos
wydma,
Duna Doha
duim.
Now, Frank Herbert was able to write 5 more sequels of the Dune series, but he unfortunately passed away in 1986. From what I can read is that his son, Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson would continue with this series, and over a dozen have been made since 1999. Now, for the longest time, I've heard rumors that someone was trying to make a Dune movie back in the 70s, but nothing came out of it until I got a hold of this documentary.
For me, it was not to make a picture. It was something deeper. I wanted to make something sacred, free.
The documentary film doesn't just explain why the movie never got made. It also explains who the director is and what went into making this project and what could have been. Now, the things he wanted to happen in this movie is so crazy that you actually have to see this documentary just to believe it. Now, I do question if it was possible to actually do all these special effects that the director wanted at the time, because it was in the 70s. Before he started making Dune, the films he made before were, to say at least, very provocative. And in some countries, his films were banned. One of the interesting things about this documentary, it is the people he gathered to actually envision what it should be and what it should look like. So why wasn't the film made? Well, if you know anything about this magazine here, Heavy Metal, you know it has a lot of nudity, but it has so many great stories and art and design of spaceships and planets landscapes, and a lot of mystical, spiritual, and weirdness. This was the style they were going for Dune. Now it is the film studios who have to take this chance to give them the money to make this movie. And it was a huge budget they wanted, and back then, that was a lot of money. And seeing how big the project was going to be, they knew they were going to ask for more money. And the director wanted this movie to be like 20 hours long, and it was going to have a lot of questionable things in it that I don't think the Americans would understand. It was too outlandish, too foreign at the time. This movie was ahead of its time. Now, seeing his vision of what he wanted Dune to be, I felt he took a little too much of the story and changed it. Now, if you see this documentary film and you know the Dune book, you will understand what I'm talking about. But he didn't waste the material. He actually took some of it and turned it into a comic book, and I was quite surprised that this comic book came from that. I mean, look, there's his name. Now, I'm not doing justice for this documentary film, but if you're a filmmaker, I can recommend that you should go see this. You'll learn something. I did. This movie is probably gonna be the strangest movie that you ever gonna see. That's going to require a lot of explanation and requires probably to be seen again. The scale of this movie is mind-blowing. It has so much beauty in it. Every piece, every costume, every set design, so much detail went into making this movie. There's so much to take in to understand the scale of this movie. Now, this is not your typical movie. David Lynch had to get the audience to be entranced into an experience of what Paul is going through, just like it describes in the book.
Pure, unrefined spice.
There is a place terrifying to us, to women.
This is the place they cannot look.
People just didn't understand what the movie was about. Now, this movie does have a lot of action, explosion, firefight, hand-to-hand combat. People probably expected this to be the next Star Wars movie. Now, David Lynch had to adapt what's in the book to the big screen, and that in itself is a challenge, especially when it's in the 80s. Now, in the book, it talks a lot about water and the spice, and whoever controls Arrakis controls the universe and the great dynasties of houses. Now, I know this is going to be very hard to believe, but this is my #1 favorite movie. Ever since I saw this on VHS tape, it has been a part of my life ever since. Now, while we're here, why don't we check the video quality and see what we had to experience back then.
The word bond of a Bene Gesserit.
It is the legend.
Now, watching Dune on a television set on a VHS tape was more than enough quality for us back in the 80s. And remember, not everyone had access to a television set or a VHS player. And one of the problems with VHS tape is that it will lose its quality over time. And people don't take care of their videotapes. They leave them up in the attic where the temperature changes from warm to cold. Or they leave it in the basement where it's very moist. And they move a lot, so their tapes get a lot of magnetic hits, which is bad for them. And don't get me started with long play. Now that's a nightmare today. One of the problems with this tape is that it's not widescreen. They zoomed in and cut the edges, just to fill out the TV screen. Now, it was normal they did that back in the days. But eventually, the Dune movie would get a DVD release. Now, unfortunately, I had to import this from the United States in order for me to get this movie. And the quality is very nice.
Report 2. Negative. Report 3.
And now I want to say something that's been bugging me personally for 20 years. Now, eventually, the Dune movie would come to Denmark, but look at this. Some graphics designer thought it would be a good idea to put a solar car in the picture. They probably thought, that looks futuristic, I'll use this. Now the only grace this thing has to save itself is that the video quality on this one is much better. Here's the comparison of the picture size. You know, while we're at it, why don't we check out the VHS, the DVD, and the Blu-ray quality so you can see the difference between sizes in VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray.
Sighting confirmed. Stand by for fix. Contact and...
I'm not in the mood. Not in the mood.
Do you know what's strange? You can actually buy the Dune movie for the PSP. Let's check it out. You know, you can actually use this as a DVD player by connecting it to your TV.
I shall want telepathy during his... and a report when we're finished.
I am your truthsayer, my lord. He's here, my lord.
This quality is really good. I'm impressed. They probably thought this would be the future of having all your films on small disc for on the go, when you're on the train or on the bus. And today we have smartphones, where we can carry the movies around us in the phone or stream directly from a server. As a kid, I got a hold of this soundtrack of Dune on a CD. The band who made this music is called Toto. I've always liked cinema soundtracks, so I can recommend this for your collection. And here I got the Dune storybook as a kid, and there were some pictures in it that I've never seen before in the film. It wasn't until many years later that I discovered that there were an extended version of Dune.
Your housekeeper, noble.
You may be the voice from the outer world.
It is a pleasure to see the extended version. Now for you good people out there, there's no need for you to see the extended version. The short version is more than enough for you. And here I have the book, The Making of Dune. The book contains a lot of information about the making of Dune that also contains lots of pictures that we've never seen before. Even a picture of Frank Herbert on the film set. Now on the DVDs and Blu-rays, there's some footage behind the scenes that shows how they made the movie, where we find out the struggle of making this film and the secret of how they did it.
We're not going to discuss worms, are we?
Of the production.
We had to physically do it, you know. Today you can create a worm in the computer.
This is, I'm sure, going to go down in history as one of the few films that follows the book so carefully.
But the film flopped sadly. So what is it that people are complaining about this movie? Well, it's some of these special effects here that people are complaining about. But I can oversee these bad special effects, because the story, the music, the character, the acting is holding the film together, so I'm deeply invested in this film. And again, the people were expecting a Star Wars movie.
We are to depart our space and return the fleet to its homes immediately.
The Guild does not take your orders.
Now they know we can strike them at will.
Oh, Shai Halud. And you complain about the David Lynch movie with its special effects? I'm gonna be a little hard on this one here. Like take this scene for instance. When I see this, it reminds me from the Batman TV show with Adam West.
What's the matter with you all?
She's right.
Miss Kicker! Miss...
Now, I did tell you that I was gonna be hard on this one. Now, but I do try to have an open mind about this TV series, but I couldn't ignore what so many issues and problems this TV series have. Now, when I saw this the first time, I could tell that the background was just a huge picture hanging in a studio, and they used this background multiple times. The other problem is, it's the way they light the characters, which doesn't match with the lighting from the background.
Best place to conserve water.
Now there's one thing I can tell you about this show. They're not shy from using lots of color lights in this show. And here we can see they're just using still pictures. That's really bad photoshopped. And some of it looks like it's cardboard cutouts. And now let's look at the CGI from the 2000s.
This is Harvester Delta HX9er with all due respect, sir.
This CGI reminds me of something. Oh, that's right.
Is Babylon 5. But it's our last best hope for peace. A place where humans and aliens could work out their differences peacefully.
Now that's a TV series I can recommend you should go see. And that one was made in 1993.
To hear about your dreams.
They're just dreams.
About what?
I do try to find some good in this, but it's really hard when so much of it is not good. It's like watching Hercules in space. Now the actor who's playing Paul Atreides, I don't think he was the right choice to play this character. Now this is just my opinion. These clothes reminds me of something I've seen before. Nah, this is just coincidence. You know, they're not making it easy for me to like this show when it looks this bad, so I can't recommend this. And it's not to offend the people who actually worked hard on this show. Now there could be multiple reasons why it looks the way it does, but at the time, many TV series were made that way. It's one reason why I mentioned Hercules in space. Now I do take into account of what year was made and what was possible at the time of making this, just so they don't have any excuse at the time. Now me and a friend of mine, we went in to see this movie and we thought it was actually pretty good. And there are so many good things about this movie that we liked in it. But I did have some issues in this movie, which we'll get into later. But let's talk about what's good about this movie. The CGI looks absolutely amazing. You can really feel the heavy elements, like it's really there. Now remember, the CGI is only there to help to tell the story. It actually looks like they built it there and filmed it. The moment you stop looking at it like a CGI and think of it as real locations, and that in itself is a compliment to all the people who worked on this movie with the art design, the CGI, special effects. Many of the suit designs are really good and well made. It gives you the instinction that it came from the heavy metal magazine, its art and design. So, is there anything I don't like about this movie? Well, only a few things and something I'm concerned about. These flying machines here are trying to mimic a dragonfly. My brain is telling me that those wings are gonna break off. There is a reason why a dragonfly only lives 50 days. But hey, I do appreciate they follow the book. Now the role as Lady Jessica is a very important character in the story, but for some reason the studio made her bland. She has no color on her dress, no hairstyle. They didn't give her anything to do, so I don't blame it on the actor. It is almost like she's a farm girl or a nun. It's like she's just there in the movie. It's a little hard to describe. Now in the movie, Chani calls Paul Atreides a little boy. My concern is that they're going to make Paul into a weak person. Now there are some other minor things in this movie, but I can live with it. The soundtrack of this music is excellent. The moment you see his name, you know you're in for a treat. And yes, I still buy CDs. So the question is, should you go see this movie? Or the David Lynch movie? Or the TV series? Well, I'll leave that up to you. Now this is mostly for people who like science fiction, and this is the universe of Dune. So if you go see this, you have to have an open mind. And so we come to the end of this episode. But I did tell you all that I had a little bonus for you all. And here it is. A 35mm of the Dune trailer from 1984. The very first one. And I've been having this for so many years now that I've had this scanned in high quality in 4K resolution. And I have even spent some time cleaning up each frame by frame, and even the sound has been cleaned. Now I'm going to release this when the time is right, but you might actually find it down in the description later on. And remember, stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to look closely at the board games of Dune. I'll see you there.